Well, hello everyone. Your show right here is talking about with the talk about for COVID-19 right here, and I'm sure that most of us are having our hard times whenever it comes to staying healthy and as well as knowing about what you can do as far as getting the care and everything that you need for that you'll fight for the against the virus and everything, and like most of us would probably say too that. Want to know too that the best source of comforts, of course, would also be advised to wear that your blankets. Besides use a mask, it's also like another way of how you want to look at it is to wear to have like a special blanket that you can use, just to be able to keep comfortable. And of course, that just another way of how do you want to say is like just for extra comfort. That's usually what I do. Is that I use a blanket, as one of my favorite design or favorite colored blanket, and then I just wrap myself up in that and just think about it as like all for hope for the best and all that. A lot of times it does work too. That whenever you are stressed out about something, or if you just want to get your mind off of something and you just want to think about besides a snack, you want to just think about just wrapping yourself up, in a special blanket. But still, that we talk about right here with this study about the disease and then also the cures for the infections and everything. And so it sure seems that way to where that a lot of stuff which a lot of people probably thinking too that a lot of stuff that was not in a typical study, like talk about for first aid and all that, but still, talk about for mask wearing right here. And, about how many of us were probably thinking too is that, why is it so important, just to be able to wear a mask and all that. And if we were to actually look at this kind of like this diagram right here, and showing right here is ways of how to keep your face protected against the virus right here. And so you're like thinking too is to where that really, how does wearing a mask help prevent the spread of COVID-19. And like anybody probably say that, really, well, besides having to wear glasses and maybe besides maybe having to wear a hat that people think is toward, you thought maybe you wearing braces, was bad enough. I'm like, if you come situation to where if you're trying, I'm like, wearing crutches or, anything like maybe a neck bracelet or something like that, but talk about from wearing a mask. So it's like, wearing a mask though, that whenever we wear a mask, that provides a source of covering, right? Prevents the infection, but a lot of times it, almost everybody else would probably say too, is to where that, wearing a mask is almost like, if you're going to be maybe scuba diving or anything like that. But wearing a mask also shows some a type of protection and some source of support for everybody else. So far as if you're going to be holding a toddler, and you know how that is to where if we're talking about two people right here, you got a toddler right here, and you got an actual mom right here, and if two people were to be wearing a mask, and then of course that prevents the spread of anything infectious, and talk about right here. I'm like, what do I mean by that? What I mean by is just toward it that you'll prevent the infection from being transmitted from the human body to another. And so the way I think, I guess according to the study though, is that that's pretty much how it is. Like beside other than the blood type of a person that you have right here is the infant right here. And let's just say that with that infant right there, that if you're not careful, then you can give that infection to somebody else, and half the time it sure seems that way to where that. So it's like you want to know too is to where that you would maybe think is to where how is it that maybe like for the immune system and all that, that why is it that things that are considered contagious, that why is it that it spreads so easily from the baby to the mom, or if it's anything related to maybe anybody around you that you could probably spread the virus. And I know most of us have probably suffered like had symptoms like maybe headaches and colds and other sorts of symptoms like that. But I tell you one thing though, that whenever it comes to infants and toddlers, And so all I could think is to where that draw right here is this infant right here, and let's just say if he was wrapped around in a blanket like this right here. So I could think is to where really, how is it that this virus right here, I'm like, yeah, if it's maybe the common cold or if it's the flu or something like that. That I guess one thing we can probably think about is to where that yeah that whenever a child is sick with something, such as maybe if it's the chicken pox or something like that, how is it really spread is toward yeah that if a child has any source of infection, and I guess another way of how you want to describe is toward that yeah, lip to lip touch or something like that, and also nose to nose touch. So really that you're probably thinking too is toward that if you provide some source of protection for each other, and then that would slow the spread of the virus. And scientists would probably say too that really if that really makes sense, but still that just knowing about is just toward it that just protect yourself against the virus. And like anybody would probably thinking too that maybe you would think though that you would actually I'm like yeah that it's not easily spread from the eyes or from the ears or anything like that. You may want to know too that most infections though that if you were to we're not required to wear any sorts of ear coverings or anything like that. But let's just say even if we did though, and knowing about like ear waves or anything like that, but I just really think too is that whenever we think about the virus though, that between the nose and the mouth, because as we all know that whenever we cough and whenever we sneeze that a lot of germs and stuff comes out. So it seems like to me that it's based on the air that you breathe and also the filter. I'm like the special type of filter and everything that's built, that's made for the mask. So whenever you provide mask coverings, and I can go ahead and sketch right in here is the details right here of talk about with mask coverings. And so let's just say that if there was like a filtration, if I can go and just draw an example right here of a filtration system right here for a mask right here. And whenever you do wear a mask, though, that you would have some masks that do have filtration systems and some of them don't. But let's just say that if you were to wear a mask with that proper filtration system, then it's like a filter to where it blocks out a lot of the germ waves and anything toxic, anything like that. Like anybody say that or anything that possibly can get on your skin and all that. But still, it just to prevent the slow of the spread of the virus. But then everybody else are probably thinking too is to where that will really that do you think also the factor matters is that whenever you do wear a mask, that maybe not everybody can really see your appearance. They can't really see the fact about if you're really or wearing makeup or anything like that, or it pretty much covers your whole face right there. Whenever you do put a mask on, whenever you do wear a mask, that pretty much covers your whole face right there. And everybody thinking too is to where that whenever you do that you're probably thinking that you just can't go to the dance or the party or wherever that you're going without having to worry about is that people cannot see your whole look, your full look whenever you got that mask on. And so I guess that sometimes that people get aggravated about that whenever you can't show them something that you're wearing, or maybe show them your look, the look with the makeup on or something like that. And so really so whenever you do wear a mask, does that kind of block out a lot of the look? And like if you had makeup on or anything like that, but still that they say, well, really that there are times if you do take off the mask and you have to be at least 6 feet apart from each other, but still that wearing the mask though. But then talk about here's a study at the vaccine and everything about the shot. And you see right here is this example right here of the virus right here. and like everybody else are probably thinking too, is to where that doing a study about the virus, because half the time you will know too, a lot of times if it's the scientist who take blood samples, a lot of times if it's blood samples. So let's just say, I guess the study about how the virus works is that you have these this example right here, the virus, and then I guess if it multiplies or something like that whenever it enters, whenever it spreads, and then you talk about for how the blood how it goes immune to the blood. So I guess a lot of it has to do with the blood, and then with the body, and just about how you become infected with it and all that. But still that the study about the virus though, and then knowing about how it spreads, but how it's spread. But you have right here this example right here of the shot right here, and like everybody else will probably thinking too, is that that whenever you do take the shot, that feels just a little bit like a pencil going into your arm, and like I say that well, I say other than like the flu shot, that what you see is like you would see like a little cap, you would see like a little cap looking device, something like this right here. And so it will be the shots are given like this right here, and like say the needle's about right here, and then it contains about this much fluid right here inside the shot right there. So a lot of people will probably say too, is to where they don't get the flu shot just because that for reasons that if they're allergic to the formula that's in there, and also that it could also be about the fact that about what their immune system can take, and maybe if they just want to say is to where that really flu shots are there mainly, and like almost all doctors can probably say too, that doctors can say that whenever if you were to take the flu shot though, that you would really want to go ahead and take it while you're not infected, while you're not sick with anything, because they say that that's basically another way of how you want to is to where it's basically another way. It's like a vitamin, and I usually just call it like kind of like a shield, like a vitamin. Whenever you take it, it's supposed to give you your body more immune strength, just to be able for anything, prevent any source of infection and all that. But at the time, it seems like that if we were to do the study though, that if most people, if you are already infected with the virus, do you think that maybe the shot would be harder for it to take effect, just because of the fact that if a person is already infected with the shot, infected with the virus. But I'll tell you one thing though, that one thing I could probably think too is that whenever it comes to thinking about shots though, that do you necessarily think about the needle going into the arm or anything like that? And people may wonder to where, well, really, that can you really give it a shot on the leg? I'm like the leg, or maybe if it's I'm like or the on your back. I'm like, but they probably say that, well, usually it's the arm. It's usually the arm where they give you the shot at, but still that I know that whenever it comes to the immune system and all that that sure seems that way, to where that whenever you do take a shot, that nurses are going to apply the rubbing alcohol a lot of times, and that rubbing alcohol, and these little wipe looking things right here, and that rubbing alcohol, like I kept thinking too while I was in the doctor's office. I kept thinking with that rubbing alcohol that they probably say is that well, does it really smell awkward, or if anything, people say that they just try to fan it out if it gets to be too strong. But I just look at it, I'm like, that rubbing alcohol that's used to rub on your arm, you rub on the skin just to be able to prevent infection before they give you the shot. And I just look at that to where that another way of how you want to show treatment. So let's just say that if whenever they use it there in the labs, that another way, if you want to look at it, is to where that yeah, it's like a disinfectant, to where that just think about that, is to where that it's another way of how to prevent infection, and then another way of how to reduce any chance for any swelling or anything like that. So like a lot of that rubbing alcohol, and you know how that is to where, yeah, well, the rubbing alcohol, of course, that's that evaporates after about 30 seconds or so. That smell reduces, and that gradually evaporates, and then that's whenever the shot is applied. And so, like everybody else are probably thinking too, is that yeah, I don't get the shot just because, but like I usually get the shot whenever I can. And I tell you one thing, everybody, that whenever I did get the shot, that I noticed a lot of tiredness, and maybe a sore arm too, just a little bit of a sore arm. But still, that when we think about the shots right here, that we're also thinking about is to where that, yeah, that whenever you do get a shot, though, half the time that if you may think that if it's the same thing as maybe having blood withdrawal or something like that for tests and all, but you like to take the shot, and any other shot that you may have received. And so yeah, that if I can remember right, how old was I when I first got my very first shot? I would say I was about 4 years old, and I think it was a tetanus shot. About every 11 years, that the doctor would ask you to get a tetanus shot. And so yeah, so whenever you do get a shot, that a lot of times it's like whenever you're young, that you just really want to think about is that you don't even want to look at where the shot is happening. You just really want to kind of turn the other way and just let the doctors let them do what they gotta do. But I just really think too is to where that they getting a shot, though, that everybody else might think too is to where that yeah, whenever you do get a shot, though, that do you want to necessarily think about to where that maybe the worst part about it, or just to make yourself feel more comfortable? And I had the time, you want to know too is to where that yeah, if there's any special outfits, if there's any special yeah, like yeah, if there's like a little snuggie or something, like a little pillow. People may wonder too that yeah, I don't know if they'll do it in every lab, but let's just say that that maybe if they gave if the nurses and doctors gave every toddler like a little pillow that they can cuddle up with. I'm like, while we give you the shot, we'll go ahead and give you this little soft pillow. Hang on to that soft pillow while we're giving you the shot. And yeah, so it's like I mean, I really don't know. Like people may say too, well, pillow's a pillow, right? But I also keep thinking too that does a pillow or maybe a little blanket or a snuggie or something like that, is that going to show more comfort for somebody that they before they get the shot, and then whenever they do get the shot, that they got something they can snuggle up to. And so yeah, a lot of times that whenever you think about to where that's something that you don't really want to look forward to, and just thinking as to where yeah, well, that for sure it's the shot, or maybe if it's a medical vitamin or anything like that, that's something that you don't look forward to. And so you just say that you want to like to hold a blanket. And you have right here's the heart right here, and you have right here's this example right here, the vaccine right here. So this the vaccine right here, as we all know, that requires about negative 90 degrees, something like Fahrenheit right here. So I mean, yeah, that's the freezing cold temperatures right there. And so a lot of times it sure seems that way, that when we think about that think about with the vaccine right there, and then knowing about for how the vaccine works and all that. And it says that just to be able to produce enough vaccines, doctors and nurses just to be able to produce enough vaccines right there. But I just really think too of that whenever it comes to the vaccines, that when we think about the vaccine, though, that you probably likely thinking too is that yeah, well, whenever we distribute the vaccine or do the studies and everything, that you warn that yeah, it's real cold temperatures, and you may think is toward it. Well, really, that are they pretty much frozen whenever they come out of those freezers, those deep freezers? Now, are we talking about is toward that are they frozen, and if you got to let it defrost and all that, or if it's really strong, real strong liquid, type formula right there, strong enough to fight the virus. And so a lot of times, a lot of people probably thinking too is that yeah, about the virus though, that about the vaccine, that for how it treats the virus, that whenever it comes to the temperature goes, and you probably thinking is to whenever you get the shot, then you know for sure that whenever you do get the shot, that you'll become immune to it because your body temperature, of course, is more than that. But scientists might say too, oh no, once you're immune because that's the temperature for where the vaccine needs to be stored, before it's used. So if you want to look at it like maybe just a little bit like a carton of eggs, like say, yeah, well, that carton, like ice cream or a carton of eggs, that the eggs have to be stored at a certain temperature before until that they're used, and whenever it's used, and then that's whenever the temperature. I'm like, yeah, that's another way of how do you want to call this is toward that about how the vaccine works is toward how it becomes nearly 95% effective. Is that whenever it's distributed, it has to be stored at a certain temperature. But then whenever it's distributed, and whenever it goes into the actual person's arm, and then that's whenever that yeah, it's able to take the full effect and up to 95%. But so it sure seems that way to where that when we think about that is that just knowing about goes into somebody's arm and just like say that yeah, well, if I say that in the meantime you still continue to wear your mask and everything, but it sure seems that way. They're doing the studies about the vaccine, though. But I just really think too that tell everybody that I just thought about that dream that I had about a year ago about is to where to do your own study about a medical research that works fighting against a disease. You're fighting against the virus. And I don't know if I'm talking about popsicle sticks or something like that, but I'm talking about an experiment, and talking about is to where that a lot of things that you're able to learn from home, like a first aid kit. What's a real good first aid kit that you can really teach somebody, and people probably thinking too that well, if you want to start out with a Fitbit, that Fitbit, a Fitbit right here would provide information about your health and everything. But let's just say if you were to start out with a Fitbit, and so let's just say that the type of first aid kit that you can maybe think about using will be like maybe skin treatment and also about paper cut treatment or something like that. And like I say that yeah, that the top infectious disease studies, and one of them could also be about healing the wound. Talk about band-aids and talk about healing the wound. That one thing that's that is required just to be able to heal the wound, of course, as we know, is also about massaging the wound and also band-aids. So let's just say that most time band-aids it basically means is to where you're sealing the wound. That whenever you do seal the wound, that you pretty much protect that wound from being infected, from being contaminated with germs and other things that could be contaminated in the air or anything anywhere else that you go. And so yeah, that so we're talking about a band-aid here, and with this band-aid that we think is toward it, just to allow that band-aid that to heal the wound. That first of all, it seems like it starts by is toward that yeah, that in order to be able to heal the wound, that there's the type of formula that's required just to be able to disinfect the wound and just to allow your body to to begin the healing process. And so yeah, the type of first aid studies that we and I know that most of us have gotten a boo boo before, and like anybody probably thinking too that whenever I say boo boo, I mean by like a cut. Most of us had maybe fallen down and gotten a cut, or maybe gotten a bruise or a scab or anything like that. And so you're probably thinking that most of the time with most treatments like that, that whenever you do get a scab or anything like that, you're probably thinking is to where, yeah, especially if it's a deep cut or something like that, something that requires you to get stitches, and the best way of how to handle that. And you know how that is that usually that you would maybe wash it off with water and maybe put like your special ointment on it, something like that. But I tell you one thing though, that most of the time though, that whenever it comes to most wounds though, that usually it was pressure. So if you would put pressure, on the surface of the wound, cover it up and put pressure on it just to be able to stop the bleeding. And so they say that that's the type of first aid that I'm sure that most of us here has learned about typical first aid, is to where they're putting pressure on the wound. And then I got right here is hand sanitizer. And I mean, I really don't know. Really though, that in case of anybody that may ask me that, well, really that do you think that you would recommend using hand sanitizer after you cut yourself on something? It's like, say, if you wind up cutting yourself on something, or maybe getting a paper cut somehow, that would hand sanitizer being required to be used for that. But they might say it might. It might sting a little bit and it might burn just a little bit, but still, it's supposed to. I'm like, yeah. So I know that. I mean, I don't know if everybody here has used a whole lot of rubbing alcohol. I know I've used it before, and the rubbing alcohol, that type of alcohol it's like forms into bubbles. I'm like, oh yeah, the type of ointment that I'm talking about is the type of formula that forms into bubbles. And yeah, bubbles, and those bubbles, of course, are formed, just to be able to reduce the infection, just to kill the germs that's infected, on the layer on your skin. So I know, what I've seen before is like the rubbing alcohol, that some of the rubbing alcohol that contains, chemical, use, and so we're talking about that. Something inside something inside the rubbing alcohol that is used, just to be able to reduce the infection. And so it's like, yeah, that you use it for a few seconds and then it evaporates. So probably people may want to know too, is toward it. Well, how come you can't just use hand soap and hot water? I'm like, hot soapy water and hand soap or something like that, just to be able to just wash the surface of the wound, and then not even use rubbing alcohol. But let's just say maybe if you did have a severe reaction or something like that, if you did have an allergic reaction to that rubbing alcohol, then you say that then yeah, using soap and water will be the best recommended option. But I'll tell you one thing though, that whenever it comes to the studies, though, about most of the time with rubbing alcohol and anything that you're using, that it seems like to me though that number one, that if you're going to be using it, then recommend some of those products that they might recommend with parent supervision, and also that to allow the doctor or the pediatrician to do it. But still, that some of those first aid kits would come with like sources of rubbing alcohol, to where you can just apply it to the skin, and it reduces the infection. And it might sting just a little bit, but still, that's another way of how to reduce the infection, and how to set disinfect the surface on the skin. So it's like yeah, but the way I think about it too, though, that when we think about getting a shot, though, that almost everybody else might say too, is that whenever you do get a shot, though, that really that do you feel real relieved whenever you do get the shot? And whenever I'm like, yeah, so include right there is the heart right there. And like everybody else are probably thinking too, is to where that, if you do wind up meeting somebody, and let's just say that if you meet somebody who comes down with maybe pink eye or something like that, so people may think as to where that, yeah, if you do meet somebody at the doctor's office, and let's just say if they're getting their vaccine for the the COVID vaccine and everything, and so I could thinking too is to where that, yeah, so it sure seems that way to where that whenever you do go anywhere in public, that you want to know too is to where that you would like to look nice and casual whenever you do go out in public. You don't want to go out and have people looking at you like what's wrong with you, or something like that, or if you got a rash on your cheek, on your left cheek, or anything like that. But like, yeah, I'll go ahead and just a little bit. I'm like, but still. But I'm like, yeah, in case of anybody that might be too embarrassed, really just to go out in public, like say that, yeah, if there's like a little rash, if you got like a little skin rash right there from what you were doing, from earlier or something like that. But still, that whenever you provide that type of face protection, such as a mask right there, and also talking about the shot right there, but then also the virus. And so I kept thinking too that going right on here, DNA, that's basically what it is. It's the DNA is doing the study, because it sure seems that way to where that yeah, the DNA. The blood, I used to say, if the blood type, and it's the blood that's used for a lot of doctors and nurses just to clarify about what's going on in in your body, what's going on in the immune system and everything. So besides the urine sample and all that a lot of times that they say is toward that yeah that whenever you do get a blood sample or anything for works what works in the bloodstream. And so it sure seems that way to where that whenever we think about blood, though, do we necessarily think about the heart right here? And like anybody thinking is to where that about every time you think about blood, though, that thinking something that you may hear in like one of those scary movie novels, like such as a Stephen King or something like that. But I tell you one thing, everybody, that whenever it comes to blood, though, that DNA studies, that yeah, well, if you want to kind of call it, maybe just a little, but I'm like, if you want to kind of call it as to where that really is blood, like if you want to look at it as to where blood is supposed to be like a pond of relief, like it's like a river.